just to hold my hands up. Listen to your heart when you take your clothes off. Better in the know to avoid the face lock. Written in the stars as you drink your days gone. I have been told just to hold my hands up. Listen to the wind when you pour your heart out. Maybe one day I will wreck you, mate, but I will shoot you down. I will shoot you down now.
Well, we're live on YouTube for a start, and we're from the Pilgrims pit in Stoke-on-Trent. And this is the second of the Bootstrapping Industries, what are they called? Bootstrapping Bands Music Industry Panel. Yes, and this is coming to you from Indie Music Matters. And as I've just cocked that up totally live on the internet, I'm going to hand you over now to your host for the evening. Big rousing round of applause, of course, from everybody here live, to Rich Hearn.
Thank you. You took the pressure off me there a little bit. I thought that was going to be my job on these first two cards. You might notice I've upgraded this week. It's not paper, it's branded cards. It's good. Huh? So yeah, first of all, I've been to a panel before where being a musician has been described as standing naked on a street corner, shouting to passers-by, "Judge me," and that judgment is often sort of related in the story of social media numbers and streams. So that those kind of metrics tell a story, and it's about how engaged your fans are. So what I want to do tonight is explore how artists go about fostering that engagement and how they go about growing the fan base. So last week we talked about songs and songwriting, and tonight we're talking about another crucial part of an artist's career, which is about your fans, how to connect with them, and how to grow a fan base. So first of all, if we can do a quick show of hands, who in here is an artist who does all of your own marketing? Okay, some of you. And who does artist marketing for other artists? Okay, a couple of you. And so in practice, what does that look like? Are you doing social media? Yes, we're all doing social media. Paid social? Yeah. Is anyone doing PR, mail-outs, kind of pressed, sort of mass mail-outs to blogs and stuff like that? Okay, a few, yeah. And what about things like Submit Hub and Human, those kind of platforms? Does that ring a bell with anyone? Yeah, okay, a couple, okay. Cool, we'll talk about that in a minute. And, yeah, playlist pitching. What about anyone who actually uses external PR companies? So external PR companies or playlist pitching companies or any external marketers. Does anyone pay anyone to do marketing? Yeah, a few of us. Cool, okay. So that gives us a bit of an idea of who's in the room. In a minute, I'll tell you who these guys are. But first of all, I've just got to swap cards. So what we're going to talk about tonight is, again, split into three parts. We're going to look at the easiest ways, first of all, the easiest ways for artists to waste a bunch of time and effort on stuff that doesn't work. Because it's really easy to be really busy when you look at marketing and music. And it's really difficult to be productive. So we're going to have a look at that. Then we're going to look at content strategies and what these guys and girls are seeing is working, and then frequency, so how much you should be doing as an artist. And then finally, we'll have a look at some examples of ways of doing it right, where you might be able to find some of those examples and nick them and do it like that, basically. So same as last time, we've got 15 minutes at the end for Q&A, but if anyone's got any questions that are pertinent to what we're talking about, just shout them out, and if we hear you, we'll add it. Otherwise, there's a load of postcards. You can scribble a question down, although I realised there was no pens. So there's two at the front. If you need them, you have to grab them from there. And yeah, on the live stream, if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat, and Lottie will let us know any questions that come in on there. So first of all, thanks to Chris, Phoebe and Darren for joining us today. I'm going to quickly give you a little bit of intro to each of them before we crack on. So starting with Phoebe. Phoebe Webb is from Scruff of the Neck. She is responsible for live marketing, which I presume keeps her busy, because I was speaking to your boss the other day about the fact that you're doing about 600 gigs this year, from kind of 60 capacity grassroots venues up to 2,000 plus capacity venues. So you're very busy. And Scruff of the Neck won the Small Label of the Year last year at the AIM Award, so everything's going really well for them, which is why I think you've stepped up how many gigs you're doing. Everything's going really great. So, and in the middle, we've got Chris Coleshaw, who started writing for specialist music sites and did freelance publicity for punk bands and punk labels, is in a band called
Hell's Ditch,
because I've got a different band written on here, the old band. And got a couple of gigs this weekend, so is in a gigging band and has done loads of campaigns in his role as digital marketing at Wall of Sound PR. And then on the end, we've got Darren Gosling, who's head of digital at Hold Tight PR, responsible for digital advertising, paid advertising and promotions. And in fact, I've got here written down that your specialist subject, which makes us sound like we're on Mastermind, is video campaigns for independent bands and labels using social media. Cool, I'll talk to you after because I've got a few videos coming out. Okay, also in a band called Chapter and Verse, who've been touring the UK since 2012. Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel. Okay, now it's your bit. I've done mine. Right. So first of all, we want to explore, okay, this is kind of a negative way to start, but I'm trying to sort of spin it on its head by the end of it. But in your opinions, what is the easiest way for artists to kind of waste their time on marketing doesn't work? Let's start at the end, Darren.
Yeah, wasting your money on stuff that doesn't work. I think it's more important to think about where you actually start from. Before even approaching a PR company, PR is basically there to amplify what it is you have in the first place. If what you're working with is still in its infancy or it hasn't really been like weather tested, there's not a lot they're going to be able to do because PR is all just about amplifying what is already there. So
the first thing is, don't release crap music.
In a nutshell, yeah, if it's crap, it's not. No one's going to want to promote it. But what that basically means is the best thing to start would be, how we started. I mean, it's the only kind of reference I have is that we went out off our own backs and booked our own shows and played up and down the UK in bands even before Chapter and Verse. Played as many shows as we could just to get the experience of doing that. And what that basically meant was that we just found out if people liked the music or not, and that was the best gauge, the best way of like finding out if there was going to be a future in it.
Cool. So you've already started. You've kind of ignored my first question and gone straight to what works. Like gigging. I mean, I remember speaking to a product manager at Sunday Best Records, whose name I forget right now, but he was talking to me about the fact that your best, if you think of quality of fans, they'll often always be from live because they're people who pay to see music and they're people who have had a shared experience with you. So rather than just heard a track on a playlist, so that like the live thing is still really important in terms of stuff that you should be doing. Is there anything that you were doing with your band, I guess is your best kind of jumping off point for this, that you realised was just a waste of time? Or were you did you not really?
I think we tried to approach managers too soon. That was one of the things that was a bit difficult for us. We thought that somehow they would be able to do something for us that we couldn't do ourselves, and actually we were at such a stage where there wasn't a lot they could do to help us anyway.
Yeah, there's a presumption, I think, that, I always think if an artist says, I want a manager, it's kind of like, well, what is it that you think they're going to do? Because probably you can do it yourself. So is your band, do you have a manager and a team around your new band, or is that very...
No, not really. We've all done the rounds in a number of different bands over the years, and I think at the moment it's very much, and I guess this is kind of pertinent to probably some of you guys, but when you're launching a new band, for us, we want to make sure that we build up that kind of foundation of support first before we start thinking about bringing management or anybody like that on board, first and foremost, we want to do plenty of shows and get people to hear our music. And then maybe if things start taking off and we get to the point where we can't do things ourselves or we feel like we need to bring somebody on board, then we'd look at that.
Yeah, so again, same question then. Was there anything that you were doing? It might not be in this band because obviously you're probably more experienced now, but in previous bands, was there any activity? Because I speak to a lot of bands who do a lot of what I'd call grunt work, and they do it because you kind of have to, and sometimes that 0.1% response you'll get from sitting for 8 hours sending emails is the 0.1% you need. But most of the time, it's just not. It's just going to fall on deaf ears. It's not actually worth doing. So, yeah, did you guys do anything like that you think, with hindsight, we probably didn't need to do that? Or
I think in terms of advertising, I think a really important thing to remember is if you're trying to put messages in front of people, they have to be the right message. You know, there's no point promoting a post about how you've got a new. You've gone into the studio to start a new record and sending that to people that have never heard of you before.
Even to the point of like out now, it's kind of that doesn't matter to most people. You've got to kind of I guess we'll come on to that, but the actual specific content of the thing that you're promoting, and down to like headlines and content and all that sort of stuff. Being creative there, I suppose, is kind of where some focus should be put on. What about on the live side? So, for example, what artists are doing to sell tickets, to sell the gigs they're doing? Is there anything you see that's rubbish and they shouldn't be doing it? Or is there anything you see that's really good?
I think that like often I see and often I pick our bands up on is not like geographically locating the correct people. There's no point like pushing a show in Scotland to people in Manchester, and it's such a simple thing, but like you'll waste money on it. Yeah, and that's really like the thing that you've got to specify it so you're not wasting your money, because like grassroots bands, like they're working on a budget, so you need to like ensure that like everything that you do is spot on, hitting the right people.
So easy to line Zuckerberg's pockets as an independent band if you don't sort of take the time to understand the platform. Click the boost button, put £5 in it, and it's done nothing. But yeah, and then also you end up messing with the algorithm, so you make it so you have to then keep feeding it. But like we talked about this earlier, and actually social media has kind of become, all of it is pretty much a paid platform. So anything you do on there now is kind of paid if you really want much reach at all and make much impact. So what's most worth an artist's time? You're suggesting it's that targeting and
like obviously like social media has like taken a massive turn towards everything having to be paid. Like, there is ways of, like, pushing it out to your audience, like, without spending money. And that's, like, mainly, like, through community management. So, like, messaging your fans, like, obviously, like, not people that, like, don't know about you, but, like, message all your followers. You can do a copy and paste message, like, it literally, like, can take, like, 10 minutes to message, like, 400 people. And if the response rate is, like, 1%, then brilliant, 1% are engaging with you, and you can make friends with them and create bigger fans and better fans from that.
What about email? I haven't really sort of thought about this, but I often sort of try and encourage artists to push people to email because it's just a better way to sell stuff really to people.
I feel like email it's probably one of the most valuable tools that a musician can have.
I've spoken to people who've gone, email? I like Grandad.
Because you've got a direct line to your fans then. You know, I always say this to bands that we work with, like every live show that you're doing, you should have a sign up on your merch stand for people to sign up to your mailing list. Because, I mean, it can tie into your Facebook adverts later on. There's getting into the nitty-gritty side of it. You can build like custom audiences around your mailing list, and they've got this thing called lookalike audiences where you can build a replica of your mailing list. You know, Facebook will look at what kind of profile your fan base is matching and create a much wider audience based on that.
This is, you moved on to my next question, I guess, which is like, what are you doing technically, and what kind of platform features are you using in campaigns, and what is working best? So we've touched on like targeting, and I'm presuming that you use business.facebook.com rather than even Ads Manager and the amount of stuff that you do. I'm interested to know, and then maybe platform specific, so kind of Facebook, Instagram. Does anyone use Twitter? Darren?
I don't use Twitter. It's like my least favorite social platform. I just haven't really I just don't like it. but I love YouTube, and I do love Facebook, and I also love Instagram, and I kind of spend most of my time using those platforms. And I always use Ads Manager within Business Manager. Yeah. Never do any boosting. But I don't discourage people from boosting. I think it's fine if you want to put a $5 or a $10 behind a post just to help promote it. It's fine. But the real gravy, the real stuff, and all the important data and all the good stuff that you want when you're paying to run a campaign is all done within Ads Manager. So it's all on the back end. So definitely investing time into learning how to use that properly is invaluable as far as I'm concerned. Like, it should be done. Everyone should start tomorrow.
How did you learn out of interest?
I self-taught myself up to a point where I thought I want more help, so I invested in courses. I brought courses. I also paid for consultations for people.
Indiepreneur or
Indiepreneur, yeah.
Cool. I'm just thinking of chucking to if anyone's interested in kind of learning some of the stuff, because it is really technical and it's pretty geeky, and people might not want to do it, but actually if you haven't got the budget to employ people like you to do it for you, then Indiepreneur. I'm trying to think of any others, but yeah.
They're the main ones. They're the main ones, and I still subscribe to their content, and I still pay for their services to teach me.
Yeah, me too.
As I go, and I think they're probably one of the best out there. So Indiepreneur, 100%. When it came to YouTube, that was all self-taught, and then brought some more courses to do that too.
What are you doing specifically on YouTube, for example? So you're talking about going back to your specialist subject in this mastermind episode.
Actually, sorry, there was a point on your other question, just about content that we find that's working really well. Because it doesn't always have to be the paid stuff. I think paid is important, and I feel it's just going to be even more important going forward. But some of the stuff that's worked really well for our campaigns, this also comes back to the whole idea of social media. When it gets brought up in conversation, sometimes it feels like there's a lot of negative connotations that go with it. Like it's such an effort to have to use social media and have to promote every day and have to make content and all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, social media is there because it's fun. People are on social media to be entertained and kill time, and they're not out there for lots of serious stuff. And if your mindset is going into that, going, man, this is effort, this is just boring, or I don't want to do this, then just don't do it. Get off and, I don't know, try to find something else to do, because you've got to want to put the content out, and it should be fun. So one of the things that we were doing recently, and we love doing this, we don't do it all the time, but every so often, if we're in the middle of a tour or we're about to go on recording studio for a while and we've got some downtime, we will just jump on our Instagram account and we'll just fire up the stories with shoot at the fans some messages, just being like, send us over some questions. We've got some time to kill. Shoot us over some questions. That everyone can post the questions in.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's some of the funniest things you can get asked in that, and then you just post the replies back, and then it's
really
2 ways.
Good idea.
That's worked really, really well. So yeah.
Have some fun with it, yeah.
Basically, have fun with it, yeah.
Yeah, it often becomes like the social bit of social media gets lost, and there's a kind of school of thought that to ditch the social thing, because actually social media is media nowadays. It's the way people sort of consume everything. But yeah, the fun bit it's kind of lost on me. I sort of don't really use social media outside of campaigns. So I work with artists and kind of go, that looks great, do it. But so I get, like you say, maybe I'll push people to get on the email list. I do send an email every week, a newsletter. So anyway. I'm waffling. I'm surprised my wife hasn't held up the waffle symbol, tell me to shut up. But so, here's one for you. What does good engagement look like per platform? Like, what are you looking for in terms of engagement? What metrics are you trying to follow? I guess for you it's ticket sales, but is there other stuff before that? Or?
So for just general organic, you probably say 10%. Engagement versus followers is usually general. So say you've got 700 followers, you're probably going to get an average of 70 likes. That's what we benchmark it on, basically.
Cool, because you pulled me up on that about one of my artists already. But fair, and it's fine because no, the thing is so we kind of flipped a profile from an old band name to a new name, and obviously we'd kind of lost loads of engagement, so the algorithm was completely against us, and we've got to build it up again. And that was your kind of response, I suppose, to have a look at it was like your engagement's not where it needs to be. If we've got 3,500 followers, we need to have whatever that is, 10% of that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of good benchmark, 10% engagement.
Yeah, and so like for like live stuff, so we usually like do traffic ads, which is like directing people to like click a link, basically. So we'd say like 10 people link click is like the average that you want to be getting. Anything above that, you're hitting the wrong people, basically, because they aren't interested in clicking it. That's okay. What we go on.
What do you, out of interest, what's the content of your kind of ads? Is it an image, or because it's so difficult now to kind of put anything up that is not an image with no text?
So we like have like varying degrees of campaigns for like different size shows. So say you've got like an academy show, you'd have trailers running, you'd have like the tour poster running, you'd
Video
have
trailers.
Various different things running to engage people in like a constant cycle of like content. If you've got like a smaller show where you've got like a budget of like £50, we often say that trailers are like the best piece of content because it just shows people who you are as a band. Like if you can get that piece of content that's like it shows your genre, it shows how good you are live, it's got like your logo on, then people know what you're about and want to come.
I think it's a really good point that like different types of music have different and different kind of fans have different ways of consuming content, and you know, if you're playing a certain kind of music, it might be that your fans enjoy reading long blog posts from you, or they might prefer video content and short, snappy stuff, or like fun, jokey comedy style stuff. It really depends, but I think really nailing in who your target audience is and building content around that is like super important.
So yeah, audience targeting is kind of where we've kind of touched on, but I've got a question about who are you targeting? So if you're doing a campaign for a particular artist, how are you setting up those audiences and who are you targeting? You've talked about custom audiences and lookalikes, but do you want to just sort of talk about that a bit, about how you target people?
I mean, the targeting, it really, again, it comes down to working out who your audience is, and that can be hard at the start because musicians tend to not be able to have a very objective view of what their music is. I guess it's just the side of their brain that they use to create music means that they're not necessarily always the best to have like an objective view of it. But the best thing that you can do really is ask your friends who they think you sound like, and really like sort of reverse engineer it in a way that to think what kind of artists are similar to the music that we're playing. Target similar artists through your targeting choices on there, and just think about like where they might shop. How do they consume music? Is it Spotify? Is that which platforms would they use? And just try and get inside their head a bit.
That whole artist targeting has become more difficult recently. I don't know if you've seen now that like Facebook have kind of raised the bar on how big an audience an artist has to have for you to be able to target them. So I'm just wondering what you're doing in response to that, because that's something I guess independent artists are going to feel like yesterday or whenever it was a couple of months ago, you could target relatively small artists. Yeah,
you used to be able to target stuff really niche artists, like the kind of music that I play in, the music that a lot of our bands on our roster play. It tends to be quite niche music, and so it wouldn't make sense for a band that's playing hardcore punk to be targeting fans of Blink-182, but as Facebook changes the parameters on it, it does get more difficult. But it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to build up a new audience base, then I'd say looking at related artists and things like that is a good way to go. But if you're trying to consolidate your existing fan base, then that kind of thing isn't as important. So I'd say that's where your mailing list and your website traffic can really come in handy. I think a lot of artists probably get too fixated on trying to think outside what they already have, when really it makes more sense to double down on the people that are already interested in your music.
And possibly trust Facebook's lookalike audiences. So, you've got 300 fans. If Facebook will let you do a lookalike campaign, then, that's another way to expand on that audience, I guess. So, what do you think about... So, bringing this now to, PR, which is kind of your specialisms, what would you encourage independent artists who perhaps aren't at the level where they can afford to pay a PR company to be doing in that respect?
In terms of PR, I think there's lots that artists can do themselves at the start. I think really doing the graft and putting together a spreadsheet of outlets that might be into the kind of music that you play is a good place to start. Trying to cultivate some relationships there, whether it's just following journalists on Twitter, responding to whatever content they're putting out there, just trying to get your name in front of them. Another way to do it is, again, look at similar artists that are doing the same style of music as you and look what outlets are giving them coverage, which journalists are paying attention to that band, and see if you can get in there. But it's not something... I mean, when you do start to work with a publicist, what you're paying for is the relationships that they've cultivated with journalists. But at an early level, there are lots of blogs and websites out there that will give you good introducing features and are willing to listen to submissions from artists. So I wouldn't be discouraged if you if you don't have the budget for a publicist, or you approach a publicist and they say it's not the right time to work together, because there's lots you can do already. What about...
I always have this kind of battle with some artists, I guess. It's not a battle at all, but they want to reach... we talked about this earlier, but they want to send something out to 3,500 people that they've got this list of. And, you can do that, it's fine, but it's cold email and it's a scattergun approach. And I often tell artists to find the 10 or 20, like you've just said, 10 or 20 people who are really possibly going to like your music, but also going to be able to actually make a change in your career, help you out in a big way, and focus on them and try and get through to them. What, in terms of that kind of thing, the scattergun approach versus laser targeting, what's your opinion on that?
I think that with the smaller audience, so not scatter. I think it's important. You can send scatterguns, fine, but then finding that core little 10 and realizing that there's more than one way of reaching someone. So just blasting them an email, making sure that email is specific and tailored to them, like you actually care. So putting in some time and effort to do a little bit of research on that person, put it into that email, fire the email over to that person, but then also hitting that person up in their DMs, hitting that person up on the Twitter. I don't know, trying to friend them on Facebook, just trying to get basically knocking on the door many, many, many times. I feel like if it's someone that you really believe could help you out, and you've taken the time to go and find them.
How many times?
The first time.
Out of interest,
I mean, if they respectfully tell you to, get lost.
12 times. No.
Yeah. But just until you maybe get an answer.
Which could be go away, but that's better than nothing.
Absolutely fine if it's go away. Definitely go away if they say go away, but yeah. Don't stop until you get an answer.
What do you think? Right, this is a difficult one because obviously there's a blogger who owns Submit Hub and all that stuff. So you might all be like, I can't say anything about that. But what do you think about Submit Hub, Human, BitSubmit, those kind of platforms? I think that they're crossing over into kind of a payola type thing, micro. I don't like it. I don't, but I kind of understand where they're coming from. If 500 artists are sending you stuff, eventually it kind of it's a really time-consuming thing. I'm just interested on your opinions on those platforms.
We generally avoid sending anything to them. I think it's a good service, but really, what you want out of PR is you want people that are genuinely interested in your music writing about you. And I kind of feel like with Submit Hub and websites like that, you're not really getting that.
It's murky.
You're paying for it.
I've had conversations with people who know that there are people, there are decent, genuine people on there and genuine publications, but it's hard to find them amongst the other people who are sitting there paying an intern 50 quid an hour to go through 100 submissions. It's like, and they then create fake pages that aren't shared on. So it's a murky world. Speaking of murky worlds, playlist pitching is another one. So in sort of lumping with Submit Hub, Human and BitSubmit, those platforms, which, like you say, they have their place potentially if you're clever with them. This may be irrelevant because we're talking about sort of PR and marketing here, and playlisting is kind of slightly different. But opinions on playlist push, playlist pitching in general, and paying for streams. That's three very different things, but I'm interested to just get your take on it.
With Spotify playlisting, I think from what I've been told by people from research that I've seen recently, the way that Spotify like music to be submitted is just through the artist portal now, and I'm not convinced that paying for playlist pitching is actually going to get you anywhere. It might actually be detrimental. I think Spotify are very keen on working directly with artists now, to the point where they don't check their editorial emails anymore. And
there's some big independent playlisters now, but I think the same as like PR is about relationships. You've got to find the right people who have the relationships, and there are some decent people and decent companies out there, but it's such a murky world, and it's another place where it's really easy for artists to throw a bunch of money at it and it doesn't actually do anything.
I think that's the point. I think I've paid. I paid for some Spotify playlists pitching, but I just don't pay a lot. So I wouldn't go around throwing hundreds at them and then being, I wouldn't play that much. But yeah, I'll drop £30 on paying a Spotify playlist, or a tenner, or however much they're asking for. What's the harm in that? I mean, we're still doing it the proper way through the artist portal as well. And at worst, it's going to get me, a couple of hundred or maybe 1,000 more streams on wherever, it's fine. Like, I also think as well, like advertising on Spotify, hey, that's going to come around. That's going to get bigger and bigger. They want people to spend money on their platform and pump their ads out on the free version. That's not going to go anywhere. So paying someone to put them on your playlist and making sure that person has budget to pay themselves to go through all the bands that they get, and then also promote their channel through the advertising as well. Like the money's all got to come from somewhere. So.
It's good, like you said, it's good practice to have the budget for it. So kind of and if you can find. Yeah, if you can find the right people, it's kind of often it's clear, and it's clear that that's dodgy and that isn't, or that's botted playlists or botted whatever, and that's probably a person with relationship.
Do some due diligence. I think that's a really good point. Do some due diligence, making sure that the playlist looks reputable and that it's updated regularly, that the songs are keeping up with everything that's coming out.
Speaking about money, what sort of budgets would you sort of suggest that you put into successful campaigns? So you're working on gigs from 60 capacity grassroots venues to obviously massive. What sort of budgets are you talking at that kind of level, the grassroots level? What would you suggest an artist should be budgeting?
At grassroots level, like say playing like under 200 cap, I wouldn't recommend spending any more than a couple of £100. Like if that, like there's going to be a cap to the people in the area that you're playing and the people that are going to be interested in your music. As long as you ensure that you hit that group enough times, then don't go around wasting your money on, I don't know, hitting Guns N' Roses or something like that. Hit specific at people that you think are actually going to buy tickets, Yeah,
cool. And so this is a tricky one for PRs to talk about budgets because depends on so many things. But yeah, so rather than what does it cost for a PR campaign for you guys, more like what would you advise independent artists to be spending on to have an impact, I guess?
In terms of digital marketing, I think it depends on what your campaign is, what you're trying to push out. Like say it's a music video or whether it's tour dates, or it does depend. I'd say at a minimum you'd want to be spending at least about £3 or £4 a day.
So that's 100 quid over a month kind of thing.
Yeah. But I mean, with Facebook and Instagram, you're going to get more out of it the more money you can pump into it.
If you set it up right and it gets you 10p clicks and yada yada.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say if you've not got any experience with Facebook ads at all, then put a little bit of money into it and just have a play around with it. You know, and just see what you can get out of it. And if you start seeing results, you start seeing an upturn in traffic, then, you know, put a bit more money into it. But just make sure that you can sort of work out what the metrics are for you, and that you're not wasting too much money on the wrong things.
Yeah, I think for video it's a little bit different because video campaigns don't tend to last a month. They have slightly shorter windows. So I tend to run them for about 7 to 10 days at £10 a day minimum, because I just want to get enough data in to learn from and help the algorithm out as quickly as possible. So I don't do anything under £10 a day. So most of the budgets that I work with the bands, it ranges from £100 to £200. And if I can, I would do that on 2 platforms. So I would do £100 on Facebook and £100 on YouTube at £10 a day. I'd run the video, and what I would do after watching for 2 to 3 days is I'd check the metrics and make sure that whatever's performing over 50% of viewer retention, so whatever audience is doing the best, 75% is the one I like to go for. However many people are watching that much of the video is the one I leave running, and then optimize from there and turn everything else off. And then,
Cool.
Scale it down a little bit and run it for a little bit less, because the better optimized your whole ad account gets, the better the algorithm works, and then it's actually cheaper. So you can run future campaigns for less.
Is that something that everyone here does, kind of multiple audiences, set up multiple audiences first, see which one performs best, and then switch off the lowest performing ones and let the budget run on the best performing? That's kind of a strategy that everyone should really be thinking of using. Yeah, cool. Moving on, part 2. 35 minutes on part 1. There's lots of questions there. I think we'll rattle through these ones quicker. Content strategies, we've kind of talked about it already, and a little bit, but I want to talk about any sort of content strategies that you've seen that are good, and frequency, so how much and how many times artists should be posting, that kind of thing. So, for example, early stage artists most probably are putting out singles or EPs. So focusing on singles, so a single track, what assets should they have prepared in advance? And, you know, what should they be doing in terms of repurposing, teasers, remixing content, that kind of thing? What do you need for a single campaign? Is that more concise?
From like a PR perspective, like a really, really key, and you know, for digital as well, is having some really good press shots.
Coloured,
cool. Yeah.
No black and white press shots.
Brick wall, black and white.
Everybody loves to get black and white photos, but they absolutely fall flat.
Cool.
People just scroll straight past them. You know, and if you, I see a couple of people like, yeah, we do that. But yeah, getting some really high quality press shots is really important. And if you're trying to catch people's attention, you know, having a cool concept for it, something visually that looks cool, some cool colours, whatever it is, you know, something eye-catching is really important.
Cool.
Yeah, press shots, good press shots, a really good band bio that's up to date with all information about the most recent members and live dates, all the live dates you've got coming up. And the audio files, obviously.
You didn't mention video, but should an artist, like, because every artist I work with nowadays has a video, because it's kind of, it's an opportunity to extend, to make the campaign last longer. But to be honest, I didn't expect you to say press shots first of all. That's quite interesting. I guess that's, it's something every band has, but possibly doesn't take. And to be honest, I've been at risk of kind of not putting the weight of importance on a biog that I should have done as well. And it's been other people in the industry who've kind of gone, yeah, you know what, that's a bit crap actually, we better like this. And I've realised that it's important mostly to people in industry. So when you're putting stuff together for artists that's public facing, that's for fans, you know, they're not going to check out the bio, they're not going to go to that page of your website, they're not going to click the about. It's the industry that matters to, and actually then it's about the story and the narrative and getting that right. So
I think to add on from that is that, like, we obviously like market like hundreds of shows, like, and sometimes it could be like 30 a week or something like that. I actually like go on the Facebook bio of the band and I use the content from that. So making sure that you have an engaging and like up to date and like enticing bio is always really important because that's what I use to market you.
Cool.
So
You're really good as well at sort of the trailers and stuff that I've seen that you've done.
Yeah.
Those trailers are like, they're really amazing pieces of video content. I'm sort of, so teasers of a video, for example, is another sort of piece of content that's, you've got your music video, but you can use it for a couple of weeks before by like teasing it and trying to encourage people to get onto your mailing list and that kind of thing. I guess you guys are thinking more about PR specifically and what you're sending to potential people who potentially might cover this single.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it's like, if we're trying to pitch you to some really good press outlets and magazines, like, it's a given that the press shots have to be really good.
When is the next question, I suppose. So when are you sort of sending those out, and what kind of lead times do you recommend, I guess, for artists you're working with? So on a single, for example.
For PR, if you're looking to get involved there, like, we like to hear initially from an artist like at least like 3 months in advance before something comes out. I mean, it does vary, and it depends whether we've got a relationship established there already, because obviously onboarding a new artist takes a lot more time than working with a repeat client, because you know everything about the band by that point, and things are in motion.
But initially, you'd like them to be in touch with you 3 months before to go, we're putting this out in 3 months' time.
Yeah, and it's good for you as well because it gives you plenty more time to start putting together
It's useful to hear that, because I kind of thought that the 3 month thing was kind of in the past when it was all press and it was all print press.
Yeah, I'd say for digital it's slightly less. Like we can do a quicker turnaround there, but
is part of that 3 month lead time because you actually want to help them do the campaign as well, rather than just.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, some of it's for us. It's scheduling and it's making sure.
Yeah,
that
okay. Putting it alongside other things you've got.
Yeah.
So, but an independent artist not using a PR, how far ahead do you think they should be sort of thinking about stuff? Because we are always on the back foot. It's like we've got releases that are coming out in 5-6 weeks.
I'd give yourself as much time as you really can. I know that's a given, but really like trying to box off everything. And the way it is these days with like Spotify playlisting, like you have to submit a certain amount of time before, and then get everything in order. And if you're trying to get like pre-saves and get people to pre-save the track to Spotify, again, you need to give yourself more time to do that, and you need to think, how am I going to build a campaign around that? How are we going to encourage people to pre-save it? How does my mailing list fit into that? How are we going to warm up our audience for this release? It's a bit of a balancing act, because you don't want to give away too much before the track's out. So trailers and things and little previews of a music video are great, but it's doing it in a way that doesn't oversaturate things.
The only other question I've got, I guess, then, for like a 3 month lead time on a campaign, it feels to me like if you did that with singles, you're only putting 4 singles out in a year. That's not enough content. So, I mean, what would do you think that's probably true, and you maybe should be doing bigger bodies of work like EPs rather than singles, or what?
I don't necessarily think that's true. I think you can. I think there is not enough content, yes, but we see quite a lot of success now with just 1 single a month, or as many as you can do. Just sort of, they don't have to come out as part of an EP. You could just sort of 1 a month and just spread the content out. We base a lot of our content releases around the tours that we do. So we know if we've got a tour coming up and we're going to need to start promoting that and pushing the tickets out, we'll plan when we release the audio, and then we'll plan when we release the video, and kind of spread them out, maybe 2 weeks apart, and just to stack it on top of each other.
So they just cross over.
So it all builds towards the end goal, which is just getting people to come to the shows.
Cool. What have we got next? So, do you see artists creating different content for different platforms? So we talked about kind of remixing content, and the trailers, things from videos and stuff is kind of one way of kind of reusing content. But what about like different content for different platforms?
I think you have to look at like Instagram is a very visual platform, so not necessarily like the stuff that you put on Twitter you put on Instagram, which is obviously a given. But it's important to also like consider your feed in Instagram. So if something that you're posting on Facebook doesn't suit your feed on Instagram, don't post it. Like, only post it on Facebook. Like, they don't have to be consistent throughout each
so
platform.
potentially have some exclusive content for different channels if that works.
Yeah, it's just like the thing of when somebody clicks on your profile on Instagram, the first thing they're going to see is how visually appealing your feed is, so you need to make sure that it is visually appealing.
Yeah, I'd just follow on from that. I'd say, like, if I, as a consumer, if I go on a band's Instagram and the content's exactly the same as what it is on Facebook, I'm going to think, well, why should I follow you here as well?
Yeah.
You know.
So you could potentially lose.
Yeah,
lose
I think if you can try and obviously, like you say, you know, use the different perks of each platform as it's intended. You know, bands are having a lot of success. Some bands that I see with Instagram stories, for instance, and that they look like a totally different band to what they are on Facebook, and you really sit and you see a really personal insight into an artist through that, especially, you know, if they're doing videos while they're touring or while they're recording or whatever it is. It's a really good opportunity to...
Do you know any bands, off the put you on the spot now, but any bands at the top of your head who do that well?
The one that came to mind is a punk band from Brighton called Harker, and they just, every time they're on tour, they're just filming everything all the time. Harker, yeah.
Cool. Check them out.
I think in general, for content, While She Sleeps are one of the best bands out there for self-marketing. Go and check them out if you don't know who they are, but everything they do, as far as I'm concerned, is quality. And one more interesting point as well, on new platforms and stuff, like if anyone's feeling overwhelmed by having to be on all of them, just don't be on all of them. Maybe just pick one and just make it your favorite one, and just go hard on that for a while, and then you can rope in more help to, you know, do the other ones. There are bands and artists right now that are just absolutely blowing up. You know, their whole careers are kicking off just because of TikTok. I have not done anything on TikTok yet. It's still completely new to me. I've yet to investigate it, but we were at BBC Introducing Live last year, and tons of label people spend their days crawling TikTok and just discovering people on there and waiting for it and watching the stats and just seeing who's paying attention to what, all because of these short little 2-minute stupid videos. And that's how people are getting discovered and getting made and blown up. So just saying, if you're sleeping on TikTok, maybe now's the time to jump on that one.
Yeah, I'm actually doing a uni essay on TikTok and the benefits of it on streaming. And
Cool.
What we found is like that it's mainly pop. So like it's not necessarily like something for every genre to like look into. Like it's usually like short, snappy, funny, like pop songs. So if it does suit like the band that you're obviously in, then yeah, have a look into it. But it's not for everybody, TikTok.
Not yet. There'll be loads of like metal bands and punk bands and everything all over it.
I can definitely back that up already, because my niece Emily, she's an avid TikTok user, and when my band's new single came out the other day, I told her that her and her school friends, it was their job to make us famous, and she was like, "It's too fast, Uncle Chris. We can't do anything to it."
Yeah.
Me and my daughter, she's 8. We every now and then she's like, "Daddy, let's look at TikTok." We just look at funny crap, and there's some interesting creative uses of the platform. It's quite an interesting video editor. I've never done anything on it, just looked at stuff. Most of it is like total crap, but every now and then there's something really cool. It's like, okay, yeah, I could see how this, if the right artist with a creative vision can do something cool on there, you can see how it might take off. And all the digital distributors now are adding TikTok, so your songs can be on there and stuff. So yeah, everyone will be on there by the end of this. So, okay, what about frequency? Any sort of recommendations on how many times an artist should be posting? So, I mean, in general, or during a campaign, or during, for a gig?
We usually suggest like if you are like doing a campaign towards an end goal, like a minimum of 3 posts a week. If you've got nothing going on, then obviously don't push content out there for like no reason. But that's usually what we say, and just making sure that it's content that people can engage with and people want to see. It's like it's very easy to just like.
Is that with your marketing head or your live marketing head? Like, are you talking 3 posts a week for a gig that you're doing, or 3 posts a week in general, just to keep momentum going?
I just if like you've got something going on, so like if it's a tour, if it's like a single release, like just some momentum behind the band that you want to drive, then we say a minimum 3 posts a week.
Cool. Anyone else got any advances on 3?
I think 3 is great as well. I'd say it's important, as well as the frequency, to just vary up the way that you're putting that message out there. You know, if you're going to share an event link for a gig you're playing, then don't just share it 3 times. You know, maybe go live on Instagram and tell people about it, or, you know, look at different ways that you can get that message out there, because people consume content in different ways.
Okay, what about so what we talked about at the very start about engagement and growing a fan base. In this last sort of thing I want to talk about is about sort of best practice for engaging fans. We've kind of gone over it really in most of the things we talked about, but are there any specific sort of fan base growth strategies? Bearing in mind that I'm working with an artist at the moment who's just got himself shadow banned on Instagram for doing something perfectly legitimate. He's reaching out to artists who, to people who have been to a particular tour. So he's finding them, knowing that that's his target audience, reaching out to them, going, "Hey, I've seen you've been to that tour. You might like my shit." And and obviously did it too much. But are there any sort of strategies that you think are worth doing and won't get you banned? Or
I think to consider is that you won't get banned as much if you copy and paste a message but then change part of it. So
you're just varying it up.
So like literally if you put the name of the person in it and then send it, then I'm not sure. I think Instagram just thinks that like you're not just copy and paste and you're not just spamming. They let you off a bit more, and then you'll get banned less often.
I think there are limits that you can find.
Yeah.
I think that it says you can do this many posts a day before we'll ban you. So that's kind of something we should probably.
It's like following rates. Like you can only like follow.
That's right. Follow and follow. It's kind of that does actually work. You can grow your following doing it, but there comes a point where the platforms kind of go that's spammy and kick you off.
The reason why everyone is believes so much in email is because email is leverage. But basically, email is you direct to fan. So that's the whole important thing about email is people used to get signed off the fact that they would have hundreds of thousands of email subscribers. It's how lots of businesses expand and blow up, is because email's leverage. You can reach that many people directly that quickly and make sales. What we wanted to do in Chapter and Verse is we didn't have a very big email subscriber list, and we weren't really putting a lot of work into it anyway, so we wanted to try and do something different. So at every show, we went around and we posted this number, and it was just join. We called it. It's a secret group that you could join if you text this number, and we would text you the codes to join it. So it was all like very like incognito, and we grew it from this tiny thing where it was need to know. You know, it's like Fight Club. It was like only people that know kind of thing, and then built it up over that. Basically, what it is, it's just a personal WhatsApp group. So everyone's just joined this WhatsApp group. Then we now have the leverage because we have direct access to our key fans, our core fans, people that are really, really like us, and we can have a really cool relationship with them and how we share content to them directly. And we own the traffic, and we have it all there.
That's awesome. So yeah, in terms of any sort of campaigns that went particularly well, you guys have got a WhatsApp sort of mailing list
Private
now?
fan group, yeah.
That's really cool, yeah. I can tell you're trying to join in.
I was just going to say that you can replicate the WhatsApp thing on Instagram. So what we do is we do like regional group chats. So say you're going on tour, you go, who's from Manchester? You make a chat from everybody from Manchester. And then say if they've all already bought tickets for this date, like the next time that you come back to Manchester, you can be like, thank you for coming last time.
That's kind of like, building community within the apps and sort of, bringing the social back to social media, which is, useful. What about any campaigns that went particularly well? I'm aware we're nearly at the point where anyone can shout out with any questions, although you could have done the whole time. Hello, by the way. So we've just been chatting away, but if anyone has got any questions, then do shout up. Otherwise, I'm going to reel through these, and then I've got another whole card. So we'll see if we can do it in 7 minutes. What about any spectacular failures? Any campaigns? You can't talk about campaign failures, can you? Sell yourselves as PRs. Yeah, but this one went really badly. But
it's a bit of a cheat answer, really, but because I wasn't directly involved with it. But one of the bands that we worked with for a while, they did pay for some dodgy Spotify service, and it got them a good 5,000-6,000 plays for hardly anything. But it also threw out all the related artists on their Spotify. So they went from having all these really cool, like, similar punk artists on there, related artists, to being French hip hop artists on there. And it's taken them probably 2 years to get it back to what it used to be. So you do have to be careful with.
I suppose, with doing something like that, you learn from your failures. At least they didn't get kicked off or whatever. It's just a case of having to then go, we need to pull back from that and do something better. What about, successful campaigns. What do they look like for you guys? What is it that you're kind of looking to achieve, and what does success look like, I guess?
It does depend on what the objective of the campaign is. For us, for a music video, getting plenty of views and plenty of comments and engagement on the post is key. If it's trying to sell more tickets for a tour, it's clicks through to the website and it's conversions. It does depend on what the objective is, really.
Sure. Yeah. So. Okay, so other than creating great music and playing great shows, are there any other tactics that work really well for growing an artist's fan base? We've sort of talked about them already, but any specific tactics that the artists can kind of go away now and start doing?
A thing that we're, like, not myself, but like other people in the company are seeing is working really well, is just doing like short snippets of covers of like bands that are like similar to your band.
And putting them where?
Just straightly on social media, like not going full blown, putting it on Spotify or anything, but then it's always like really useful, like that you can just specifically hit that fan base and then...
Okay, yeah. So grow audience from that other artist.
Yeah. So you have like a kind of a connection with them already because they're like, oh shit, they like the same band as I like, kind of thing. Yeah.
Cool. So, has anyone got any questions? Don't all shout at once. Oh, we've got one. One at the back, one at the back, one at the front.
When you were talking about advertising through sort of TikTok, do you think you could sort of do that with sort of like rock as well, or would it just sort of be down to pop?
So is it
1,000,000%? Yes, you can. Yeah.
There you go. So it's not. I mean, as much as pop is working now, it's just a case of someone getting creative, and it doesn't matter what genre.
Yeah. It might be a case of you do something original, and you're the first person to do it. It's always worth trying.
Mark?
A few questions actually, but I'll start with this one and let other people jump in. We talked about frequency of release, frequency of content on whatever platform it is that you're dedicating your time to. Would you say it would be a better strategy to be releasing perhaps once a month or once every couple of months, with maybe not putting so much money and effort into the production side and having a polished record, as opposed to actually I'm going to wait 3-4 months and get the absolute best quality recording out there? Or does it just depend on who your audience is?
I think it does depend a little bit, but on the whole, I think it's a really good idea to try, because I think if the song is good, then people may excuse the fact that it's like not the best polished thing.
So a lot of people can record at home now.
Exactly, and some of them, it sounds great.
Demo out and keep the frequency going.
No better way.
Proper studio time.
Yeah, well, there's no better way of finding out how people really feel about it than not spending a lot of money to get the finished thing, but pumping kind of stuff out for them to all to hear, and then letting the feedback tell you and going, wow, this is doing so well. Now we can invest in making these songs the best, or putting a video behind this track because it's doing so well, and let your audience dictate what you do next, and putting out as much content as you can without as much effort, so to speak, is also a good thing. So not every music video has to be, thousands of pounds worth of budget to make. I've shot videos on my phone many times, and people don't really care necessarily. They can excuse quote unquote poor quality if it's fun, if it's engaging, if it's entertaining. So
I work with a few artists, and there's a lot of this going, loads of energy for say 2 weeks pre-release and then release, and then just tumbleweed for a couple of months, before something else happens. And that always worries me, that people are a bit fickle, they'll go elsewhere. Then when you do perhaps release something else and all of a sudden there's some noise, oh, I've forgotten about you already and I'll actually unlike, maybe, would the frequency be a better strategy, I guess?
Yeah, I think just do you. Just stay true to your course and stay disciplined to put out stuff as regularly as you can. And don't worry too much about the ups and downs. Everything goes up and down.
Yeah.
And I don't really pay attention to likes anymore. I feel like they'll be the first metric to kind of get their head chopped off. Like they'll just get rid of them one day overnight. And what will it matter then? So there'll be other things to worry about. So less worrying about kind of that and more just staying true to making sure what you're putting out is better every time.
A thing to consider is like algorithms, like they optimize for shares, comments, and what's the other one?
What did you say?
Like they optimize it for stuff other than likes. So like likes aren't necessarily like the be all and end all. Like if you can, if you can create like engaging content that people want to interact with, that's way better.
It's retention at the end of the day, because what they want is people to stay on the platform for as long as possible. That's how they make their money, and that's all they want. So if your content is keeping them on the platform for a long time, you'll pay less to advertise, you'll get rewards and all the rest of it.
I'd say as well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with maybe having like a few A campaigns through the year that you really put all your weight behind, and then having some smaller supporting stuff, and looking at repurposing the content that you're putting out and seeing if you can maybe do a live session of a track that you might not release until for an EP later on, but you want to warm people up for with a cool live video.
That's a great point, actually. I've done video campaigns for bands that singles came out sometimes years before, and we just repurposed it and still put it out. It's still great. Still looks cool. The song's still awesome. Still plenty of people in the world that haven't heard it. So repurposing is a great idea.
Cool. Well, I think that's about all we've got time for. So thank you to everyone very much for coming. You guys are sticking around for an hour or so. So if there's any sort of one-to-one questions, Mark, do you want to carry on conversations, then feel free. And thank you so much to our panellists. Thank you to anyone watching on the live stream. And next week, we're going to be talking about the live sector and how to become a viable touring act. So thank you.